Beautiful. Peter, just to close our conversation, which has just been so exciting and fascinating, I would like you to just bring some advice. What advice would you give to business leaders when it comes to digital transformation, especially within the African context?
Yeah, great question there. And I think, we have a current jobs crisis already, right? Which you could trace back to a current educational crisis. So there are some minimum building blocks that we need in both the public, private, and educational sector that have to be in place, on top of which we can adapt to a broadly changing global context, right? So those basics have to be in place. I mean, that basic understanding of how the world is changing, how the business world is shifting. We have to be able to communicate that. We have to be able to understand that. We have to think about how that will arrive on our shores and what impact that'll have on our local context and communities. But my fundamental belief, like you mentioned, is that and I teach a couple of courses, for entrepreneurs who can use these free and user-intuitive technologies to start a podcast, for example, like you've got going, to write a book, to build out a product line. And it's the entrepreneurs in the context of their communities that know best what their environment needs. And that environment and the people around them are going to be their customers. And it's again coming back to what we said about customer centricity. If you can understand what your customers want and you can build and deliver and run and manage a successful organization that meets those needs, that is what we must premise our future growth on. And Clem Santa, always used to talk about the high road and the low road. And the high road for me is that entrepreneurial empowerment. And whereas traditionally it might have come through credit and finance or other things that we were in, had scarcity of. Now it's around technology, and the scarcity has become the skills and the knowledge to use and harness that technology and apply it to your local context in ways that meet the needs of the people around you, which will then become your customers. So that's the one angle of it. The other angle of it is the global brands and the lift and drop, mentality that might be, let's say, too hard for us to replicate locally. And as you mentioned, is it easier just to sign up to Airbnb or to create your own little accommodation ecosystem? So we have to make sure that these global brands, have a local context to them. Netflix, for example, has great local South African content built into its library. Uber, for example, they actually have a fantastic localization strategy around the world, where in all of the countries they operate, they develop features that are relevant to that city and that country. And the engineers and the analysts and the people that work in Uber's offices around the world can try those features out on the global Uber platform, but only for the people that are in that location. And then based on the data, they can use the data and the take-up to use those features around the world. So you could have somebody working for Uber in Johannesburg that builds a feature that then gets adopted onto the global Uber platform. So those are two thoughts on localization and local opportunities for people. And through my role in the commercial division of the large bank where I was working, I used to spend a lot of time with SMEs. And, we have some of the brightest minds in the world that are the most competitive that you could ever find. And if you match that thinking and that intellect and those street smarts, with the right technology at the right time, you can have exponential businesses taking off. I mean, we've seen Cape Town becoming a hub for techpreneurs. And becoming very successful brands that are then exported, globally, and for people that become incredibly successful. So we need more of those. Sarah, I think that would be my final message. And in and through all of that is this educational theme, this access to technology, localized awareness and understanding of buying patterns and consumer behavior. But as I do say, minimum building blocks, food, water, infrastructure, basic education, there's a Maslow's hierarchy of needs that we have to solve before you can get to that level of innovation. Unless we're able to innovate for some of those lower level rungs on Maslow's hierarchy, that would also be fantastic. But some of those are a lot harder to innovate on. But I wouldn't discount some of our bright entrepreneurs being able to democratize water production, for example, or to democratize electricity production. And we're already seeing it. Microgrids throughout Africa, home generated, solar generated power being fed back into national grids. That's a classic example of the fourth industrial revolution. It's just, again, how does that fit in with society and regulation and government and the management of society as a whole? But Sarah, fantastic conversation. Thank you. I really enjoyed it. It's been a conversational masterclass, I guess.
Thank you, Peter. I have absolutely enjoyed, this conversation, and I am looking forward to having more of these conversations with you. I am just so grateful to you for making time to just come and pour yourself and the knowledge that you've acquired to our listeners. So till we meet again and we see each other, ciao, ciao. Thank you, Peter.